And then I'm going live. Thank you all for joining.
I think we're live.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Mhm.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. I wanted to start off tonight talking a little bit about why we've been doing these videos before we jump into our topic tonight. So, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I look when I look back on my own journey, there have been so many people who have influenced my path and made things a lot lighter and brighter for me. And I think it's really the people who just authentically share what they're going through are the greatest teachers, have been the greatest teachers for me. So I've gathered together a panel of some of the wisest people that I know so that we can share our experiences as we've been on this path for many, many years. And it's all of our deepest prayer to be in support of humanity at this very time. So it's a lofty goal, but really it just comes down to being vulnerable, being truthful, being yourself, and sharing what we're going through. So that's why we're here. So this particular chat today is on weathering the storm. And I've been noticing in the collective, and perhaps some of you have been noticing as well, that things are just continuing to heat up. There's a lot of storm happening, both in our personal lives and in the collective. So I thought we might be able to come on and share some of our experiences and to offer some tips and techniques that have helped us weather the storms over the years. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself. And I would like for you all to answer the question, what are you focused on creating right now? And one of the reasons I think this is important is that we are all creator beings, and this is our essence, really. And so when we're not creating something, we're a little bit out of our essence, and everybody has something to contribute. So let's start with Leela. Leela, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Leela Hutchison. I'm from Sonoma, California. And what am I creating now is I am focusing on bringing more peace, heaven on earth, peace, joy, and happiness.
Well, thank you. Cerise?
Hi, I'm Cerise Risich, and I'm in New Jersey. What I'm focused on creating now is community, and that's community through a wellness center, community through online networking, community through retreats. So just really creating community places for people to go who are looking for others to be in community with at this time.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for introducing yourself. Ashley?
Hello, my name is Ashley, and I am located in the Sedona area. And I am really focused right now on safety, creating safety in a community and safety in spiritual leadership. And I'm doing that by developing, oh, I haven't said this in public. Wow, okay. I am creating an ethical course for spiritual leaders that I'm very, very excited to share about. So thank you for that burst of heat in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. It's out there now. I guess it's happening.
It is happening. Here we go.
Awesome. Charlene?
Thanks, Kay, for putting this together. And I'm so happy to be with all these beautiful hearts that I know and love so much. I am from Sedona, or I live in Sedona, Arizona. I'm actually in my hometown where I grew up in Glen Ellen, Illinois right now. And what I am focused on creating right now is a curriculum, an educational curriculum, a very special one that helps people to know who they are and where their authority truly lies. And that is just one itty bitty small part of the legacy of love that I am creating. So I'm focused on creating a legacy of love and what's next for humanity. Yeah, and I think I just wanted to say a little bit about constantly being a creator being is sometimes you have to take your hands off the wheel. Being in overcreation sometimes is not extremely helpful or healthy. And so I actually, even though I'm creating this curriculum, I also have my hands off the wheel to allow my life to show me the best place to focus my creative energies as well, in tandem with that.
Wow, that's such an awesome point. Yes, thank you so much for that. My name is Kay Eck, and I'm happy to be with you here from Sedona. And I'm focused on creating a couple of things. I've always been kind of a creator. I love art. I love writing. So I'm doing a little bit of that. I'm working on a novel right now. It'll be my third book. Very excited about it. And I'm also making pottery, mostly for Ashley's upcoming wedding. So, yay! So anyway, that's what I'm up to. All right, I'm just going to change to speaker view here. And let's dive in.
Okay,
So
I
would
just
like-
want, can I say
Yeah,
something? I just
sure.
wanted to amend my, what am I creating now? When I was saying about peace and heaven on earth, I'm actually doing that through my family and healing my family lineage.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There's so much to that creative question. And actually, next month, we're going to be covering the topic of creativity. So we'll be back with more on that. For now, let's talk about the storm, though. I would like to hear from each of you, kind of like your assessment about what is going on in the world. And this question kind of thrills me because I really, we have such different perspectives, and it's kind of like a lesson in understanding that everybody has a different reality, everybody has different priorities, everybody has a different focus. And it just helps to, I just love like the different ideas. So Leela, why don't we go ahead and start with you? What is your assessment of what's going on with humanity right now?
I think what's happening is we're reaching an apex of chaos. And this is based on having rigid beliefs in certain structures. And I think what we're seeing around us is just a tremendous amount of everything kind of disintegrating, these institutions, certain things in our environment. And I think what that is doing is also meeting with a compression breakthrough of an awakening that people are understanding that they are more than just themselves, and that they are now, I think, emerging with more flashes of insight and experiences that there's a unity of all of us, all of the one.
Beautiful, thank you. Charlene, how about you?
Thanks, Kay. So wait, remind me what the question was?
What is your assessment of what humanity is going through
right.
right now?
Yes. Okay. My assessment. So this is actually something that is really near and dear to my heart, because I usually just like to encapsulate it into our crisis is a birth. And I can't take full credit for that little sentence. I got that from a mentor of mine, Barbara Marks Hubbard, who I called the 14th cosmic grandmother. I had been studying her work for years, and she came into my life after I started into my own personal journey for my own personal spiritual journey on a deeper level. And so my understanding of what we're seeing currently, which I never expected it to be this intense, was that the structures, I was told from the inside out that the structures are no longer serving us, and that we would either destroy ourselves or recreate ourselves. This is an encapsulation of a download that came in a big piece of information, not words. And the way of struggle would be that the structures would have to break down and we would have to rebuild them. And the way of peace would be they would be able to transform from the inside out. So I actually feel like this moment in time, we are finally in the midst of a structural change, like Leela was saying. So that's what I believe is going on. And that's how I refer to it in my life. That's even how I relate to what's going on in my world.
Yeah. Cerise, how about you?
So I agree with, what both Charlene and Leela were talking about. I'm just going to pick one area and just go a little bit deeper there. And that's about this awakening, where people are going through their own spiritual awakening. I'm finding that more and more people are awakening, but they don't know and understand what's going on. So they're very lost. So I'm sensing a lot of this energy of individuals that, and it's almost in some ways they're not able to find the support that they need. And so there's this depression and this negative energy that's coming from this, sense of confusion, depression. And so, which is part of the reason why I think there's so many opportunities for us to be organized and come into community to help one another. But that's what I'm, seeing a lot of and feeling a lot of. That's happening right now.
Yeah, that's so valuable to mention that this awakening process can be very challenging for people. And sometimes it looks like a breakdown when in actuality it's a breakthrough, but you might not know that until you actually get to the breakthrough, right? So Ashley, how about you?
For me, the only way that I have found that can describe what's happening right now is I think seeds have been planted in consciousness to awaken. And I think that it's already happened and that we are in this next profound golden age, and more than just like birthing contractions, because that has happened. I think what's really going on is like if you're someone that doesn't understand spiritual growth, when you're looking at a seed that's been planted, it can feel kind of like what you're saying, Kay, of like, it can feel like you're being buried, but really it's been a planting, and you have to soften and you have to turn yourself inside out. So all of your guts are out in what seems like, like you've been buried, but it's planted, and you're kind of sending those tendrils out to find the courage to break through the surface of that intimate place. And so that's what I feel like is like we're all being called back to love, and either it is love or it's a cry for love. And we're in that space of like really living our authentic lives that feels like our guts are all out, but really it's just us like planting that intention and embodying that truth of that courage to kind of rise above the surface, to like be that beacon. So it's like a metaphor, but it's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I love that. I can only add that all of that I think is so helpful and beautiful. And I just want to add that I feel like humanity is going through a very natural evolutionary arc. And as part of that process, if you just look at it just strictly in terms of energy, then we're vibrating at a higher resonance, and everything that is of a lower resonance has to fall away. But here on Earth, unfortunately, that means that it has to kind of come up to be seen before it actually crumbles. And a lot of the structures that are held in place by our longtime beliefs and people who want it to stay that way. So the falling away isn't kind of like a natural, easy, effortless thing. It involves a lot of self-reflection and self-growth, letting go of beliefs that you held to be true that are not true, and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to add that on there. Ashley, inside of that metaphor that you so beautifully described, what would you say are like humanity's greatest challenges within that?
I think you already touched upon it. I think one of the hardest things, I think, for humanity, and I'm speaking for myself, is bringing the unconscious conscious. So the things that you were completely unaware of that were, addictions or sufferings or anything that is kind of in the shadow that you didn't know, you had no idea, and finding that, if you want to call it sobriety, or finding that clarity around habits or patterns or programs that have kind of kept you small or kept you unworthy, and being able to really acknowledge that. I think that is the biggest part of all of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about how maybe some of these things have come to light in your life that, sort of like the trigger for the growth to start from this, the bursting through the seed part of the program?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a particular example. Like I recently I went through a massive awareness that I was not living my own divine purpose, that I was actually falling in line with someone else's, and that served a purpose, and it had an intention in my life, and I don't have any regrets around that. But at some point I became very clear that there was something that needed to shift, and that I actually needed to step into my own divine purpose and honor like who I was. And that took a lot. It took a lot to get to that awareness, that something was off, and it took quite a while. It took several years to really become clear about that. And I think that it actually came from this tiny nagging feeling that just would not go away. And then when I started to go, why is that nagging feeling still there? And just getting curious about it, that's when it started to become more and more clear, like the shift that was happening within me. And it really came from curiosity as opposed to full on pain and suffering. Like it actually started with curiosity. And then from there, things started to become a lot clearer. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Let me go to Cerise and ask you, what are some of the challenges, if you don't mind sharing, that contributed to your awakening?
I think the biggest challenges that contributed to it was a catalyst of multiple things happening in my life at the time, a lot of change that was happening, concurrently, that really created this shift for me. And it was gradual as well. But it was also having to trust myself, and recognize and start doing some real deep healing and introspection that I hadn't been ready to do prior, that helped me with my awakening more and more. And then also trusting my own self and intuition to be able to come through it, but also finding community and mentors and others that, you know, could also help guide me. And they helped significantly because they were able to help me make sense of things that didn't make sense, you know, on my own. And then in trusting individuals in a way I'd never trusted before, and surrendering really, you know, was able to help me come through, to be able to see a real path forward versus really struggling previously, you know, with a lot of uncertainty and unknowing and confusion. So there was so much in that, but really finding the right individuals and trusting and having that discernment as well, because that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing too. It's that there are these false messages that are coming through, and it's important to be able to see through and to really feel into what resonates, what can be trusted, and then what's that false light that's trying to penetrate as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think that for a lot of us, when I'm looking back at my own life, I tend to think like there's not a single challenge that I faced that wasn't somehow tied to my spiritual path. Everything was tied to that. Although at the time, you know, it took me many years to recognize it as that. I was, you know, clawing my way through all these problems and feelings and not recognizing it until one day, you know, you just kind of realize that, oh, this is work that needs to occur within me. It's not that there's something wrong with the life that is outside of me. It's how I'm approaching it. It's the beliefs I hold. It's the patterns and programs and all of that need to be broken down. But you bring up an interesting point, and I want to ask Charlene, although this wasn't on my list of questions, I want to ask you, given that the collective, you know, what we see outside of ourselves is so loud and so chaotic right now, how do you tell what is yours to pay attention to bring into your experience? You're muted.
Thank you. Wow, that's a pretty big question. Well, at this point, I'll have to say at this point, because, you know, over the past few years, it's been a little rough go, right? And there's been a lot of information out there, and then things that people would say would be misinformation or disinformation. And I actually kind of feel like all of that is still going on in an interesting way. And to experience all of it, you know, like take it all in and then not feel so great. And then know my limits. But I think the thing for me right now that I've kind of honed in on is first and foremost my gut, you know, like, is this something that I need to pay attention to, or is this not? And actually, by the way, I have an intention set in my field, which equates to I'm on a need to know basis with the universe. Because at that one point where I was taking everything in, because I felt like taking all that in was making me safe in some way, knowing everything, or keeping abreast, we'll say, of what we thought it was going on. So now I'm on a need to know basis. And I feel like I was even sharing with my mom earlier today that there is a conversation that's happening in a part of my world, and there's a confusion aspect that has kind of come in, we'll call it from like left field. And I'm just really feeling like when there's an element that comes in that either feels like a confusion, a distraction, or starts to drain energy, it's time to draw a boundary and say, no go. And for me, it's a body thing. Like I put it through a filter of my body. So it's how it makes me feel, because I've become very protective of my energetic space and what I'm letting in and what I'm not letting in.
Mm.
That's like a graduation for me. So
Yeah, I think that's a graduation for a lot of people, especially people who are very compassionate and empathic and want to live a responsible life, meaning that they care about their fellow man. And if there's something that they can do, they want to do it. But like you said, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and not know and to be confused about what is your business and what isn't. So I'm curious how you built your skill in that area. How did you attune to what was happening in your body? Did you have a practice for that?
no, actually, I exhausted myself multiple times. Well, and so then it became a practice, right? Like, so I took in so many things that I felt energetically drained, that I would notice when I would become energetically drained and stop. And so I feel like the first image that I got when you asked me that question, Kay, was literally like a child walking, like a baby learning to walk. It's kind of like you get up and you start walking and fall down and get back up again and keep going. And so now I've just developed some really strong boundaries around what I let in to my space, honestly. So
Yeah.
that's the practice. But I messed up a lot, and it was very messy in the beginning. And sometimes like I still fall down the wagon and like need to look at something, like somebody will send me an article on something, and then I think I need to look at it, and really I don't need to look at it, you know.
Yeah. And I just want to say that because there's so much information coming at us, like it just unprecedented levels of information, that we tend to think that we have to know it all, and that's actually counterproductive. You end up being way less effective if you don't have those kinds of, I don't know, I don't really like boundaries, but I mean, I like boundaries, but the term I think is like, it's like a barrier where I think like just discernment as to what is within your realm of business, I guess you could say. I want to ask Leela, how do you have a screen for what is yours to know and what is yours to do, like Charlene was talking about?
Thank you, Kay. I really like what Charlene had to say and want to agree with that. I've had a mantra for a long time, and my mantra is, I will know what I need to know when I need to know it. I will know what I need to know when I need to know it. And it helps that busy, mental mind of mine to just settle down. And how I know when I'm overloaded is the same thing. I feel drained by the mental spin I've put myself into. And it's a practice, and you do get up and you fall down, because our society has such an addiction to the need to know. And we're all talking to each other based on what we know and what we've just learned. So there's this practice of, it's a feeling. It's all those feelings. So if it's feeling negative, then I know I've tipped over, and that I'm in a part of a spin that's really nothing that I can do about it. What I can do about it is how I feel and how I experience my own reality. Make sense?
Yep, absolutely. I want to ask you, throughout your life, when you have found yourself in a personal storm, what are some of the things that you do to, one, recognize the storm, and then two, to cope with it?
I've started to practice a while ago, I guess. I was just thinking about this. I wrote about this actually. And so my mind wants to tell you what I wrote down, but I'm just going to share from my heart. Part of it is slowing down the breath. Like when something has really got a grip on me and it's been a tremendous trigger, I just stop everything that I'm doing and take some deep breaths, slow, deep breaths, just to help me get back in my body. Because I have a tendency, being an empath, when things get really triggered or intense, I want to leave the body. I just want to move right out of the crown and out of the body instead of grounding in. And so for me, that practice of breath helps me to realize that I can be grounded and present, and I can surrender to what is happening. It's not always easy, but that's a process that I've been working on for a long time. Surrenders to maybe the universe isn't out to get me, that is for me, and it's for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, what Charlene said about registering the feelings in your body, you need to be in your body in order to feel those. So it is definitely an important step there. Ashley, how about you? What do you use during the personal storms?
It's very, very similar. It's breath, sound, and movement. So slowing down the breath, moving my body so I can feel the boundary of where I am, because this temple space that we're in many ways is the eye of the storm. And when we can center and anchor and ground in our embodiment, and it can really support us in getting a lot of clarity. And for me, like the sound, it really is prayer, like out loud prayer that is vibrating off of every cell of my being. So that way I can take the time that I need to respond to the situation, whatever it is, instead of react. Because we can get really reactionary, and that's when the fight or flight, or fawning, like any of that stuff starts to kind of come in, because we're like ready, for something to come through. And I found if I can just really be in that center, clear space, then if I decide to, buffalo it and run into the storm, like I have that power, or if I actually need to stay in the eye and the eye moves with me until that chaotic energy has kind of dissipated. So that's how I feel.
I love that. That's beautiful. Cerise, how about you?
There are two things that I try to do, and I'm not saying that I'm always successful at them, but the first thing I try to do is think about the mirror, and whatever that storm is, whatever is happening, try to understand why I'm being triggered or what's happened. What can I learn from the experience? What am I meant to take out of this? What am I supposed to change? What am I supposed to do? So I try to take some time for introspection, and that's the other part. I try really hard to step away and process. I find that, my immediate reaction isn't always the right one. So I really need to go through more of a process to take that time to think through it. Sometimes, even overnight and sleeping on it helps have a fresh perspective. And then sometimes even, hibernating a bit and, letting a little bit more time depending on what the storm is, and going inside for a while before, reacting to the situation. So I try to do those two things, the mirror and then taking the time.
Beautiful. I think the storm, the personal storm, can be either something that you're moving through, or it can be your response to the world in which you live. And for me, I have so many techniques that I have cultivated over the years and lots of storms. And I just want to share those. The first one being that when I'm facing some difficult situation, we talked about this last time we were on a couple of weeks ago. I go into like caring for K mode, and I give myself a big space of grace in which to experience these difficult emotions, these challenging situations, these heartbreaks, disappointments. And I really treat myself like I would one of my children. You know, I just sit with myself and hold my own hand through the whole thing. And then the other thing that I do is I feel like, especially when it concerns what's going on in the collective, things that we feel that we have a little bit less control over, we feel a little bit more powerless, is I do two things. I either go for the micro or I go for the macro. And in the micro, I really focus in on my own little life. And I tend to my life in the ways that I can. I clean my closet. I wash my dishes. I maybe sit on the porch in the sun. You can see I sat on the porch a little too long today, but I couldn't resist. And then the macro is like Charlene was intimating, is like taking my hands off the wheel and trusting that this evolutionary arc that we are on is God's plan, not mine. And I don't need to micromanage God. I can let that portion, I can let go of that and let God. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. So let's see. Did I get to everybody on the storm? Did I ask that question of everybody? Because I really wanted everybody's tips. Did I ask you, Charlene? Yeah.
No.
I would
but
love to hear your tips.
Are you sure?
Yep.
The storm, my own personal storms. Well, actually, it's taken me a really long time to get to where I am right now. I feel like I've lived a pretty good 20-year storm. And when the storms first started to me, I was numb as all get up. And so what that really means is that I knew, like, there's a part of me that knew that something was off in my world, but I didn't have the access to my gut in the way that I do now. I didn't have access to some of the things that I have. And so it's been a real long walk to really reconnect with myself. And so now when I have a personal storm, and I've had a bunch of them recently, I just allow myself to feel what I'm feeling and do a lot of similar things that have been mentioned, which is give myself time and space to be with me. And I feel like going from being really numb to having feelings has caused me to really listen to what's going on and to feel what I'm feeling so I can get the information from the feeling that I'm having. And, you know, as we all know in this little group, and maybe those listening, a lot of times it's not even really exactly rooted in the thing that just brought the emotion forward.
Mm.
It's usually something, or it could be something that's a deeper something. And, you know, even though I've been feeling like I'm in a 20-year storm, I'm still dealing or having storms or mini storms around things that I feel like I've been working on for a really long time. And as a recovering perfectionist, it's helped me to cultivate a lot of self-love and self-compassion and patience with myself. And kind of like you say, Kay, you know, treating myself like my best friend or a little child would be treated. But yeah, that's really a lot of the times mostly how I do it. And then I think the one thing that we really didn't talk about is to reaching out to a sacred other or a good friend or a trusted confidant during storms, to really lean on, and which I always feel like is a good thing to do when things that maybe aren't as easy to feel alone come up. So that's how I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think like creating that kind of relationship with someone, that where you can be yourself and where you can be vulnerable, it's like creating like a little, support team for yourself that's always going to be there for you, and that you can absolutely super important part of the process. Ashley, I want to ask you, in your opinion, do you feel like we have the power to change? Well, maybe I should rephrase this question. What do you feel in the circumstance of the wide world? What do we have the power to change?
I honestly, like, I feel like we have the power to change anything and everything that we want. We are creators. I know that that's like a very strong statement, but we truly are creators, creatrixes. Like, we create the universe that we live in. And so even with all of the kerfuffles and the dark energy and all of the things that we are creators, like at the end of the day. And so anything and everything that we can create, we can make it happen. You see it in the movie industry all the time, whether it's scary or it's something really powerful that's meant to impact and change the world for the better. And I think the more that we really acknowledge and become really clear about the kind of power that we actually have in the reality that we're in, as, if you want to call it, Christ conscious being, unity conscious beings, like we really do have quite a bit of power. And we have many of us have an addiction to suffering that causes this caveat to go into a path. So and I think that these storms actually are like an opportunity for us to actually become aware of our power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you explain for us a little bit about the mechanics of how that works? Like, if you see a situation that you would like to change, what is that? How do you do that? What is the process?
A situation that you want to change.
Like, how do you wield that power?
I think it's actually through your embodiment. I think it's actually through how you present and carry yourself out in the world. And we talked a little bit about this actually a couple of times. It's kind of come up that, okay, so I talk a lot in my sessions with individuals that I work with about enough, the word enough. And it's actually on the same side, if you want to see it, it's on the same coin, or it's a mirror. So the enough of enough, I've had enough of this. No, I'm done. That is one element of reclaiming power in a situation where you're feeling powerless. Enough. And then the other side of that is, am I enough? Have I done enough? The enoughness that kind of comes very connected to unworthiness or fear. And to me, like in any situation that you're wanting to create change, it's like, first, really checking in with yourself and what, if there's an enough that's coming up, which might be what's happening when you're observing something where change needs to happen, or a storm or whatever it is that's going on. It's like, are you in the space of saying, enough, I'm done with this, and you actually need to speak your truth and make your voice heard? Or is it something that actually you're working on embodying that for yourself, to know that you are worthy enough to ask for what you need, or to create the space that you need, or to take the moment to kind of reflect? And, I know that the collective tends to celebrate the big shifts, the big, like, hurrah, moments. But I think there's a lot to be said in the tiny moments that happen that actually ripple into the bigger moments. Those bigger moments happen because of smaller moments. That clarity came from that like awareness. So that's how I feel about it.
Wow, yeah, that's beautiful. I was going to ask Leela a question, but I'll go to Cerise instead. Cerise, can you tell me or tell us a little bit about how you deal with the feeling of powerlessness? How does it surface in your world, and what's your approach to it?
Um, I th- the me prior to being on this path had a lot of anger. And so I definitely try to recognize and see what my body is experiencing through those moments. And I think for me, now as I'm trying to be more aware and more intuitive, I am taking time to really meditate. Meditation for me has been, I can't even explain in words how helpful it has been. The amount of clarity that I can see in situations, the reduction in stress, just also using meditation to also do, visualizations and to see things in different ways. I can play out scenarios. I can see, 5 steps ahead. So the more I've been working with meditating, the more that I've been practicing, the more I've been able to step into my power in learning how to not feel powerless. I find a lot of power in the act of meditating, so that has helped me significantly.
Beautiful, I love that. Leela, can I ask you about this issue of powerlessness? When do you feel it, and what do you do about it?
When do I feel powerless?
Mm-hmm.
When I would say current events, things that are happening around us that I don't know how to personally change, when there's tremendous suffering from any kind of an event, as we've seen so much that's happened over the last few years, especially. So one of the things that I do when I see things that I can't control, so that's the first thing I say to myself, is that I cannot control the outcome for the world on these current events. But what I can do is, for me, it's about frequency. And it's changing, we've heard this so much in metaphysics, and it might be a cliche, maybe it isn't, but it really is about vibration and frequency. So then I said, and I go, okay, so if I'm feeling depressed and I'm feeling hopeless or powerless, then how can I change that through a vibration and frequency? And the first thing that I do is I sit down and I write 10 things out on gratitude, what I'm grateful for. So I know that just in gratitude alone, it starts to increase the frequency. And I think we've all had the experiences when you feel happy, happy things happen to us, right? And when you feel sad, then we see and witness sad things around us. So we are creators. We're creators of our reality. So that's the beginning for me. And then I had written it down that, like Sarisa said, what I think about is in the meditation, I visualize a connection to God through my crown chakra. And I think of that color as a color and visualize a golden white light coming through my crown, coming through my body. But I also see in the heart chakra being a golden light. And also that allows for that frequency in me to raise and help me shift that thinking for me. And then I think the last thing I wanted to say about that is I practice. I'm not always good at it, but I visualize how I would like my day to be or the next moments to be, and think about a blank screen and just observe myself on that screen and visualize how I would like my perfect day to be.
Yahoo. I'm so glad
Frequency.
that you brought up the topic of vibration and frequency, because it's definitely something that I've been working with lately. And the way that that looks for me is that when I see something occurring in the collective that's a trigger for me, that gets me riled up, like let's say it's the degradation of the earth or something like that, I think to
Yes.
myself, like, what in me is still degrading the earth? And so, if I can resolve some of those things within myself, they tend to start disappearing in my reality. And it's not like it isn't a spiritual bypassing to raise your vibration. Um, it's it's a recognition of what you can do in this given moment and what you can't. And I think it's super important to know what you are responsible for and what you are not. And you definitely are responsible for your vibration. So given that, that's a great place to start, is just thinking about why it is that you feel the way you feel. For me, I had some, I guess you would call it depression throughout my life. And I always thought that there was something wrong with me. And what I came to understand was that it was a yearning. It wasn't sadness. It was a yearning for the truth of who I was and what I was seeing in front of me. And getting, down to some of those core issues are the things that free us into a higher resonance, I think. Charlene, I want to ask you, do we have the power to thrive when all hell is breaking loose?
Great question, Kay. Gosh, what do I want to say about this? Well, it depends on what a person's definition of thrive is. And I'm saying that because I think that there's a vision of thrive, and I have a vision of thriving that's way different than my thriving inside of the storm, so to speak, or a storm in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because one of the tenets that I've always lived by a bit is the issue is how you relate to the issue. And if there's a way to be with what's going on in your world in a way that brings the lessons and the learning and the transformation, that could be considered thriving. Because on some level too, I also believe that we are souls that come to planet Earth for a curriculum. And if we're on our curriculum, ideally, what we're going through as we overcome, it feels like thriving. And there's the other kind of thriving, or a other kind of thriving, I'll call it that could be like a job and a bank account and a house and a car and all those things. And so I feel like there is an opportunity to move through this time and really do your curriculum well. That creates thriving. And I actually feel like it's the most authentic thriving that could possibly occur while we're going through the birth that I believe that we're going through,
Mm-hmm.
to get to the other side of being our true selves and our most awesome, authentic self. So yeah, I believe so. I've often said if some people looked inside of my life, they might think that I'm not exactly thriving, but what I've gone through has given me more of me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ashley, how about you? Is it your feeling that we can thrive in these times?
Yes. Um, and I do agree with Charlene is that you really to me, it's important to get really clear about how you're defining thriving. And that's a practice in itself. I often think of surviving, right? Like surviving the circumstances and being a survivor. And then I think of like really thriving and like learning from the lessons and like stepping through. And to me, that's the spark of consciousness, like unity consciousness, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Like, to me, that's the spark of the creator within us that is choosing to thrive despite the initiations or the storms that we're experiencing in life, and choosing more life and choosing more. To me, that is thriving, just like a garden, is in bloom. It's like it's choosing to thrive despite all of the difficulties that brought it to being in that space. So
Yeah, I love that you both brought up this idea that thriving might be different for each of us, because you're making me feel like, for me, what I've always longed for was peace of mind. And that it's such a small, subtle, quiet way of thriving, but it has been like my dream to have that. And so, I can say that I'm thriving. And I actually made a little list of the understandings that have led me to peace of mind. And one of them was the realization that everybody on the planet has a soul plan for their evolution. And some of us are like on a supersonic jet, nonstop to enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, embodiment. And other people are like in a rickshaw, in a traffic jam in Mumbai. They don't have directions to their destination. It could very well take a while. And so this understanding has freed me up to be with other people and their paths, their chosen paths, in a much more accepting way, so that it doesn't cause any kind of turmoil within me to see somebody who I believe is not on a fast enough path, or not on the plan that I would like for them to be on. So that peace of mind, to me, is priceless. It's something that I try to cultivate every single day.
I want to add something, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You've used two words tonight that really struck a chord. And that is, you mentioned yearning like earlier, and then you just mentioned longing. And in the discussion earlier about like awakening and realizing like kind of what's going on with the world, I actually think that longing and yearning are actually a part of the awakening process, because you're realizing that something is wanting to move from unconscious to conscious. That something is needing to be filled or needing to be aware. And I actually think it is that spark of curiosity that comes from longing and yearning that brings us to the next state of evolution. And I felt very called to mention that.
Yeah, I think that curiosity is so critical to this process, because it really is what ignites your investigation of what it is that you're going through. Like, it's not random. Nothing's random. So you're being confronted with something for a reason, and just start asking questions. What is it? Why am I experiencing this? Why am I feeling this way? I love that. Cerise, from a spiritual perspective, what is it important for people to know right now, do you feel?
That there are a lot of people out there that are willing to help others, that that want to be there, that are pillars of light and support, and that people don't have to go through this experience alone. and there are people that can help guide you. You can do it alone. It's no one's saying that you can't, but if anyone needs that support, wants that support, likes that companionship, also having someone to talk to share experiences with, can be very helpful. So the big thing to know is you don't have to do it alone if you don't want to.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Leela, how about you? What do you feel people need to know right now?
I think there is so much support and love for us from God, source, and from, I call them the unseens, that are really here, that really want to see us thrive. All we need to do is to ask for help and watch the miracles happen. There's guidance, there's assistance, whether it's a friend that shows up, support that way. But God has never left us. And I believe that if we turn to that and trust that, that's a major support weathering through these storms. That's how I do it.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful sentiment that really resonates with me, of course. And I think that there's I don't know whether you would call it a frequency or something that is running through the atmosphere that makes us afraid to step onto the spiritual path. I know I had a lot of religious dogma that I had separated myself from, but I was left without that, I felt like that meant that I couldn't be overtly spiritual. And so that's been a huge thing for me, is to, talk more about what I'm actually feeling about the connection to God and source and all of that stuff. Even using the word God was really tough for me for so many years, because I'm afraid people think like I'm, just a crazy person, like a super hyper religious. I don't know, I shouldn't probably go on, but you know what I mean.
I do. Yes, I had it too.
So what do you feel hopeful for right now?
Hopeful for or helpful for? What did you say?
Hopeful.
Hopeful. Oh,
Hopeful about, I guess I should say.
I believe humanity can create a golden age of miracles if we open our hearts. We're too mental. We lock ourselves into a mental realm and then we don't feel. And it's through the heart passage, that chakra, that opens up, and know that we have this beautiful support and guidance. And that if we as a collective can imagine and visualize in our own worlds, that we can bring this miracle of peace to earth. That's what I feel hopeful for. I think we can do it. We just have to accrete enough of the humanity, the collective. And I think one of the ways to do that is like these global mass meditations.
Mm.
If we can get enough of us, it's just one vehicle where we can all focus on the same thing, and something as beautiful as peace on earth, and the ending of suffering.
Yeah.
How would that change things?
Beautiful. Thank you. Charlene, what do you feel we have to be hopeful about? And what would you tell people who are not feeling hopeful or are in fear?
Gosh, well, I was going to say, I'm hopeful for clean water and clean air, clean soil, and I'm hopeful for those things. I mean, I'm not gonna, I don't like to sugarcoat. I'm not a sugarcoater by any means, and I think we have a ways to go. And I mean, so that's what I'm hopeful for, but somebody who's in fear, you know, like, or having a rough time, I really feel like, it's almost like what I had to do, like the opposite of what I thought I was like what I would originally do. So like my words of wisdom would be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be gentle with yourself, be gentle to others. We're moving into a time that is prophesied, like Leela was saying, is like 1,000 years of peace. And everything that is unlike that has to come up to be rectified. And so fear, you know, powerlessness, hopelessness, anger, hate, it's like, I've heard myself say a couple times over the past 2 weeks is like, it's like when you get sick and it's like you start feeling not good. And then before you know it, you're coughing, sneezing, you have a fever, and it gets worse. And then those symptoms subside, and suddenly you're like a new person again. And so I feel like that's what we're going through as a collective, and that ideally just be kind and gentle as you move through what you're going through, and, you know, be willing to really be with it and learn what's present for you and all that's being experienced. And that's the best we can do.
Y'all be nice. We have the flu.
Planet Earth has the flu.
Ashley, could you round out our discussion here and tell us a little bit about what you're hopeful about and what would you offer to people who maybe are not feeling that hopeful?
Yeah. You know, for me, it's so much, it feels so much deeper than hope. I have faith. I have faith in the I am presence of every single soul who said yes to coming to this planet. I have faith that each individual that is here for a reason, and that these storms, as wild as it sounds, I feel that it's actually bringing in interdependency. I feel that each one of us can have compassion, forgiveness, love for anyone else that is going through a storm. And it's the willingness to be able to honor each other in this space. And it feels like this current golden age that we're in, we're beyond the bridge, like we are here. And it feels like it is connected to this interdependency, this freedom within our bodies, our hearts, and our minds. And I think that it comes from that faith in the I am presence that's within each one of us. And so my hope for this planet and for humanity is that we can actually continue to remember that we are I am. And so it is.
Love that. Thank you so much. I just want to add to all of that, you know, if you are feeling overwhelmed or disappointed in humanity, I would advise you to turn off your TV, your telephone, and your laptop and get out into your community and see what the truth is of humanity, because we're only seeing a very small portion of what is actually happening on our planet. And most of it is really, really beautiful and really hopeful. So get outside. So I want to thank everybody, all of our panelists. I would encourage you to put your contact information in the chat so that if somebody needs a friend, they can reach out to you, because I know that we are all of the same feeling that of making ourselves available for anybody who might need a friend. So please put your contact information in the chat. And I want to thank everybody who might be joining us live or who might be seeing us later on the replay. You can also, I've uploaded all of these videos onto my YouTube channel. And so they're there for you to see anytime. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks and we're going to talk about creativity, and that should be a fun one. Thank you all for joining. Blessings.